This week in Jamaica Now, Nigerian man at the center of an Ebola scare in Mandeville says Jamaica is not ready to handle the disease.
It is really bad and nasty.
The government launches a probe into the handling of the case. Radical Muslim leader Yasin Abu Bakr hits back at the Jamaican government over his deportation. Islam leader Farrakhan says Jamaica should do away with the Queen. 15-year-old gunman among 3 children shot and injured in Kingston attack, and Rockford flares again. What's behind the shooting of 8 people in the East Kingston community? The details of these and other stories coming up after the break.
There's a story behind my skin. My only makeup? True Match.
Only True Match has L'Oreal's technology to match your skin's unique tone and undertone. 100% guaranteed.
My skin, my story, my True Match.
From L'Oreal.
I'm Carleen Brown, and this is Jamaica Now. Dr. Bob Banjo, the Nigerian man at the center of an Ebola scare in Mandeville, has warned that Jamaica is in trouble if his ordeal is any indication of the country's preparedness for Ebola. Dr. Banjo, who has lived in Jamaica for the past 28 years, has blasted nurses and other employees at the hospital for the manner in which they treated him when he turned up there 2 Saturdays ago. He had been sweating and reported feeling dizzy. According to Dr. Banjo, all appeared to be well until he told a nurse he returned from Nigeria on August 27.
I said, yes, I traveled to Nigeria July and I came back August 27. I specifically gave her the date I came back. And she left me. I went to the doctor and all of a sudden I started to see everybody running helter-skelter, getting haywire, blah, blah, blah. For 9.5 hours, I was neglected, abandoned, no communication, nothing to say what is going on. The only time I get any information was when I called Dr. McIntosh to explain what is going on. So it is really bad and nasty.
He says after waiting for 9 hours, he was informed that he was sick with food poisoning and was given a prescription for high blood pressure and allowed to leave the hospital. And the Health Ministry has launched a probe into the conduct of personnel at the Mandeville Regional Hospital after Dr. Banjo's complaints. The Health Minister, Dr. Fenton Ferguson, says the probe will look at possible breaches of confidentiality or unprofessional behavior.
I also believe that natural justice must take its place relative to the necessary investigation, and I have called on the chairman of the region, Mr. Michael Stewart, and already it is on the way in terms of making connection with the CEO of the hospital, the senior medical officer, so that at least we will have available the necessary information coming from both sides.
In the meantime, Jamaican health officials are now moving to address the country's Ebola response protocols. Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Kevin Harvey, says many of the protocols were developed by the Centers for Disease Control (CDC) in the United States. However, Dr. Harvey says the CDC recently issued new Ebola response protocols after conceding that some of the previous procedures had failed.
They're now recommending different types of suits and face shields rather than face masks instead of goggles. So we have to do a significant reshift in keeping with the new recommendations.
Dr. Harvey hinted that some of Jamaica's new Ebola response protocols could mirror those used by Cuba, which has sent hundreds of medical personnel to West African countries stricken by Ebola. Almost 5,000 people, mainly in Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone, have died from the latest Ebola outbreak. Trinidadian radical Muslim leader Yasin Abu Bakr says he's ashamed of the government for thinking that Jamaicans could be radicalized within just a matter of days. Abu Bakr, the leader of the Jamaat al-Muslimin group, which attempted to overthrow the government of Trinidad and Tobago in 1990, was recently denied entry to Jamaica. The government said he was refused landing in the interest of national security. In Parliament last Tuesday, National Security Minister Peter Bunting defended the government's decision to spend $4 million to send Abu Bakr back to Trinidad. Bunting said it was better to pay the $4 million to deport Abu Bakr than have him radicalizing detainees at the Horizon Adult Remand Center.
All things considered, Mr. Speaker, this seemed the best course of action immediately available to the government, given that it was clearly in the interest of national security to not land this individual and to remove him from Jamaica at the earliest opportunity. We, Mr. Speaker, we did not wish this individual to be in Horizon, spending time attempting to radicalize persons there.
However, the Trinidadian Muslim leader criticized the Jamaican government for taking such a position. He says Jamaicans are not stupid, and he fails to see what kind of damage he could possibly have done within a 4 to 5 day visit to Jamaica. Police investigators are reporting that one of the 3 children shot and injured in Kingston on Heroes Day is believed to have been a gunman. According to the police, the 15-year-old boy was possibly shot in crossfire. The minor, who remains in hospital under police guard, is expected to be charged by detectives later this week. The police say the other 2 victims, a 15-year-old girl and her 7-year-old sister, were walking in the vicinity of Church and North Streets when they were pounced upon by a group of men who opened fire at them. They say it's during that attack that the 3rd minor was shot and injured by his cronies in a crossfire. And the police are on the hunt for the men behind a deadly attack in Rockfort, Kingston that left 3 people dead and 5 others injured on Wednesday night. Residents say a gang feud is behind the attack, and they fear that there could be reprisals. Opposition members of parliament have been criticized by party leader Andrew Holness for not doing enough to build the party and winning over Jamaicans. Mr. Holness says while the party welcomes its favorable rating in recent polls, some MPs have done nothing to contribute to this positive outlook. A Gleaner commissioned Bill Johnson poll conducted in September has found that the JLP is leading the governing People's National Party in all areas, and that Holness is also well ahead of the PNP president, Portia Simpson Miller. Addressing a meeting called to examine the polls, Holness reportedly criticized underperforming MPs and urged them to clean up their acts and images. The new standard bearer for the People's National Party PNP in Central Westmoreland has expressed confidence that he will retain the long-standing seat for the party. Last week, delegates elected businessman Dwayne Vaz to represent the party in the upcoming by-election in the constituency. A by-election became necessary after the death of Member of Parliament and former Agriculture Minister Roger Clark in late August. Vaz said with the candidate selection out of the way, his attention is now on uniting the constituency and putting in the work to ensure a victory for the PNP. And that's it for this edition of Jamaica Now, your weekly review of the big news stories. Send us your comments at onlinefeedback@gleanerjm.com. You may tune in to Power 106 FM for regular updates. Follow us on Twitter at Jamaica Gleaner and on Facebook at Gleaner Jamaica. I'm Carleen Brown, and as we go, excerpts from the head of the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan, as he addressed the 19th anniversary of the Million Man March at a function held in Kingston last week.
We are under the British system. I think that's a problem. How do I know that? Because you have not proved in the 50 years of your independence that you are not still bound to your former colonial and slave masters. Some of you mothers and fathers, you rear your children, they leave your house if they back the next week. Mama, can I borrow some sugar and tea? She said, well, what you left for? If you can't go out and make it on your own, then you should have stayed in the room that I gave you. So now you're coming back. That's how white people look at you. I give you independence, you don't want to take it. Your educators should be developing an educational system that frees your mind from white supremacy influence. My teacher taught me that if a man won't treat you right, what will make you think he will teach you right? So you don't have nothing to celebrate if you're not marching toward the goal of true liberation, true independence.